Okay. Thank you, Christy.
Actually, that's Angelina today. Christy is out.
Excuse me, Angelina.
No problem.
Oh, I'm glad. All right, is there, this is October 2nd, 2024, City Council for the City of Gerhart, public meeting. Right now, I'm going to ask, is there a declaration of any conflict of interest from the council?
No.
No. Hearing none, we're going to go immediately to the approval of minutes. And the first one is the public hearing and regular meeting of the City Council for Wednesday, September 4th, 2024. Are there any corrections?
I have a correction.
Okay,
It's on the second page. At the very bottom. The third line from the bottom. Says, which city planner Phillips said he did not believe they discussed this. Phillips is listed here as a possessor, and that's his name. So the apostrophe should go.
thank you very much. I did not catch that at all. Any other corrections? I'll take a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the hearing, the minutes from the public hearing and regular meeting of the City Council for Wednesday, September 4th, 2024.
Second,
I'll second that.
any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passed. Okay. This is really a tough one. Executive session for the City Council, Wednesday, September 4th, 2024.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the executive session of the City Council on Wednesday, September 4th, 2024.
Second, please.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. City of Gerhart work session of the City Council and the Planning Commission minutes for Tuesday, September 17th, 2024. Are there any corrections?
Yes,
Okay,
page 4, bottom of the page. I could be wrong about this, but I don't think so. It says planning commissioner Halpern inquired on the ability to achieve a net loss. I think it's supposed to be a no net loss.
It is no net loss.
no net loss.
Yeah.
So we add the no.
I'm good with that.
Are there any other corrections? I'll take a motion for this.
I'll give you a motion to approve the minutes from the work session of the City Council, Tuesday, September 17th, 2024. Should I say the joint work session of the Gerhart City Council and Planning Commission on Tuesday, September 17th, 2024.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, moving on, I'm going to not see that. I'm going to move my mayor's report to the end of the meeting. I'm also going to ask for a consensus that we change and have Bob Morey make a very short presentation at the visitor section. It's not on our agenda. It's going to preclude us from doing any kind of debriefing, but I think it's very important that we hear what he's got to say. So if we can vote in favor of that, I'd appreciate it. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Wait.
All right. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. All right, good. And the other thing I want to do is, we've got a young couple and mother here that are at the very end of this tedious meeting for a liquor license application. I'd like to move them to the visitor section so they can just make their plea to us and then get out of here so they don't have to enjoy what older people love doing. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're gonna move that. Oh, great. So we have no planning commission meetings. I'm off to the races until the end of the meeting. Councilor reports. I'm gonna start with you, Preston.
I was absent for the off, but I'm sure.
Okay,
I got enough.
you have nothing? Sharon?
Yes, just two things quickly. I attended the Clatsop County Goals meeting. They've had a series of them so far. They need to rewrite goals 16, 17, and 18, which are beaches and dunes, shoreline, and estuary. So I attended that because I'm just trying to understand everything that goes into that. And then the other thing is I volunteered at the emergency preparedness fair up at Camp Ryan on Saturday.
I got a question about that rewrite of those goals. Is that because of FEMA's pick'em? Or is it just something they
It's
had
because they
already?
haven't done them since, I think it's 96 or 97, and they need to be more in alignment with state goals.
Okay.
state goals.
Which could be changing anyway. Thank you. Dana?
Okay, I did a fair amount, but I'm gonna keep it short. Heard from a lot of citizens. Topics discussed this month was complaints about the contractor work hour limitations, the proposed tree ordinance, the fire station location. Spoke with Fire Chief Crowley from Pasco, Washington, at the request of a citizen about a project that they did up there, comparison, and got some details. Attempted to contact Richland, Washington about, again, request from another citizen or same citizen to ask questions about the fire station. They recently completed theirs, still doing research on that. Also attended the FEMA buyout meeting with the Planning Commission. Very interesting meeting, very concerned coming out of that as far as how it's not only going to impact our folks, homeowners that live in the floodplain, but also throughout Clatsop County. This could affect our teachers, our police officers, yada, yada, yada. Worried about insurance rates for homeowners as a result of it. I have reservations to attend the League of Oregon Cities Conference in Bend in next week or the week after. And they are gonna have a portion of that devoted to the FEMA buyout. And I expect that to be a very popular session, and I will do my best to cram myself into that room. That's it.
Thank you very much. All right, moving on. City officer reports. And Chief Gregory.
Good evening. I'll be very brief. Stats being the second, they're not completed yet. You should expect them early in the week, next week. Officers are doing great and being very proactive, so everything's moving smooth.
Great, glad to hear it.
Thank you.
Glad everyone's doing well in the department.
Yes, sir. Me too.
All right, Chief Como.
You guys shall have my report, for the full incident, month long, and the breakdown. I'll go through the breakdown real quick and see if there's questions. 56 total calls last month, 26 inside city limits, 24 were in the district. We sent out, auto related 6 times. 3 was the seaside, 2 was for fires. One was for the big, MCI mass casualty incident car crash that happened at the junction beginning of the month. One's to Warrenton for structure fire, and 2 fire marshal's office mobilizations for weapon fires. We received a 0 times. Unless there's any questions, that's all I got.
Any questions? Thank you very much, Chief. You. Okay, Master of Money.
Well, September happens to be kind of a financially slow month for us as far as revenue goes. We anxiously await our property tax coming in as those statements start coming out for our community. In revenues, we did have in 10-0013 fines and forfeitures. The city's portion of processing municipal court It was distributed, so when we, our court clerk processes all the payments and distributes money out to the state and to Clatsop County, the city also recoups a portion of that, and so we had a payment there. The building department in Fund 40 has gained momentum again, just like last year. It was kind of quiet in the month of July and August, which is surprising to us since it's our driest portion, but that department has been very, very busy and processing lots of construction related permits. In expenditures, noteworthy was a payment in the city auditors, which is split between the general fund and water. A payment in 1060 for the city's annual short-term rental software, which tracks and monitors at all times people who post listings. It searches on the internet for addresses and sends notices to us if people are trying to do illegal STRs in the city. Annual payments in the police department in 10-1263 purchase services for our services provided by Lexipol, and 10-1270 for the use of computerized law enforcement record management software, which this will be our last year using that particular software. The county is transitioning over, so this year is a transition year between the two. So we have to pay both of them as we move over. Fire staff had some conflagration, mobilization, personnel costs, and there was a quarterly payment to the Gerhart Volunteer Firefighters Association for the volunteer gas and clothing reimbursement. In Fund 30, the water operating fund, there were expenses in 30-60-61 for wastewater disposal. So there is waste created in the making of water at the wastewater plant, and we have to have that removed, and we have to take it up to Longview or Claskine, St. Helens maybe. There's a couple different places to take it. 3363 for continued support for our water rights permit compliance requirements with the state of Oregon. And 3064 for the city's water purchase for Warrenton. There was another payment in Fund 71 for the city's groundwater modeling service project. So that's been submitted to the state, and we had to pay a processing fee and part of the payment to the company that helped us prepare that. The city had used emergency procurement rules for two recent unforeseen circumstances here in the city. The city's external generator malfunctioned, which is the one that's right over here that supports our fire, city hall, and police and public works. It overheated and stopped working. We could smell fire. I don't know if we saw fire. An emergency evaluation from Cummins, the manufacturer of that generator, had to be ordered. And so they came down and evaluated it and attempted to repair it. And that quote was around $11,000. So it was over the $10,000. But they were the people that we bought it from, and we needed them to evaluate it. And at this point, looks like it probably might not be fixable. So we'll have to move on. This is just happening. The second incident was an issue with a chlorine storage tank that has developed a slow leak. It's not an emergency at this point, but there is a lag time to get the tank ordered. So we did an emergency tank replacement to immediately have it ordered and get it on the building timeline for them to be able to meet it. So that's finance.
Thank you. Peter?
So Garrett and I are both continuing to work with the outside folks, 3J, that are helping us with our buildable lands inventory and housing needs analysis. It's been they've been very cooperative, and they've Garrett's done a great job, and Angelina as well, done a great job of getting them the data they need so that we can build upon the work that we did in 2019 instead of kind of reinventing the wheel. So I've been happy with their responsiveness. The OGEC, that's the Oregon Government Ethics Commission, just sent out some rules that they have developed that are going to be getting implemented. The OGC itself is going to be the entity doing the training. All elected officials, and I believe planning commission members as well, probably budget committee members, are going to have a mandatory training. I read through all the rules, and a lot of what they seem to be trying to get at are this concept of what's called a serial meeting, which would be people having a series of conversations, whether it's planning commissioners or counselors, outside of a public meeting. And the main component they seem to be focused on is that it's acceptable to share research outside of a public meeting. So someone, but not to advocate. So someone could say like, I pulled the regulations of short-term rentals from 8 different jurisdictions or fractional share ownerships. But what you can't then say is, and I think Sonoma's is really good, because then it appears that you guys are debating towards an outcome. And so this was a major area of emphasis for them. Another area of emphasis for these rules is the use of executive sessions, which we don't use particularly often. We usually only use them to discuss litigation or to discuss property purchases. But apparently there's some jurisdictions that are having executive sessions like every meeting. And so they're clarifying that, and also these rules are going to impose some civil penalties. So there are other changes as well, but because you're going to have to go to a mandatory training, I won't get into it. Just be really careful when you're communicating with each other, sending emails or all that. Really, the city's business needs to happen at public meetings so that the public can watch it. And with all of our electronic devices, it's so easy to make a mistake. So just be super aware of that. I mean, we're going to be discussing these FEMA things, and I've been hearing a lot more concern from some people related to this, and also having how these FEMA rules are going to, I'm just going to say, interact with the governor's housing emergency. She declared a housing emergency 10-year period that really loosened up a lot of these rules. And now we have FEMA rules that are going to be going into effect. And obviously there's no precedent on point because all this is brand new as far as which ones we defer to. So we're going to be having a lot of discussions about it and trying to navigate our way through what seems to be two very much competing concepts. One of limiting building near floodplains, and the other seeming to allow more building in floodplains. And, state versus federal law. Federal usually wins out, but then, statewide declared emergency, that really complicates things. So I'm going to be trying really hard, and so is Garrett. And we've already been having a lot of discussions with Chad and Angelina on these issues as we try and work our way through. And the other thing that I just point out more for the public, because I think all of you are aware of this, we still don't have the maps and guidelines. So we're still, we're supposed to adopt this stuff in December, and we don't have it yet. And I had expected it in July, and because they had been signaling to us, you're going to get the stuff in July. We're now at our October meeting. We don't have it. I'm going to try and come up with creative ways to meet our quote unquote December deadline probably referencing the maps, but saying that there will be local review of the maps and also of the opt-out process so that we have language that we've passed that demonstrates we're trying to comply with our requirements while being completely blind as to what all that looks like. So I'm sure that will be fun for all of us going forward. So that's all I've got, unless you have questions. Yeah.
Don't you think FEMA's got their hands full with on the East Coast? You think we're ever gonna get any direct answers from them?
So what they told us this summer is that we had to demonstrate compliance with these requirements, those requirements being their kind of updated maps and other requirements related to floodplain issues. And I really want to do that, but we can meet our obligations. But again, like, it's totally outside of our control when we'll get model rules and model maps. And anytime we get these maps, invariably we have to ground truth them. I mean, it's the same thing with our buildable lands inventory. We had to ground truth it because they had all these acres west of the no build line as being available for development. So, we're unique as compared to other cities. And when groups are just like, oh, their zoning allows for 5 units per acre and they have an X number of acres available, we'll just assign that number. That doesn't work because we've got creeks and floodplains and no build lines and the other line that was the Palmer line from 1979. And then we have to figure out which ones are applicable, and it just complicates everything. So
I have a question for you. So when we're talking about, I mean, one of the impacts on the homes, let's say, for example, our homes that are, I'm a homeowner along the Neocoxy and I'm now affected by this FEMA buyout. What concerns me is those folks there are they're gonna have to get used to some rules that they've never, I mean, you would typically living there, you would think, oh, I can just throw down a couple of pavers, it's not a big deal. But according to FEMA buyout, no, it is a big deal. Now I have to get an environmental report of some type or an impact report and a permit. So something that, would have cost me $10 in the past will now cost me exponentially more. Not only that, but I'm worried about how this is going to affect our insurance rates, because insurance rates are affected by the cost to replace or repair. And if they have to do those same permitting and studies in order just to do a simple repair to a home, it's going to run up the cost of insurance too. And that's what Warrenton's worried about. They're saying up there that their cost of insurance in some cases is going to go from $288 to $10,000 a year.
yeah, and the other challenge that we have as compared to other jurisdictions is that all of these areas are kind of fluid. So that people are very frustrated that we don't have hard rules around the estuary and stuff, and it's because it changes. It can change over time. So we have a dynamic situation versus like a limestone lined river in Kentucky, that really doesn't move. So it's just, it is a lot of challenges. And that's why there is that we have the 3 options. One of them is that property owners can do basically kind of a more in-depth letter or map revision for this if the dynamic situation changes or if it's not accurate. And so that's probably going to be more important to us than jurisdictions that don't have these sort of fluid situations. So it's really going to be challenging, even if we had all the data we need from the feds, from FEMA. This would still be very challenging for us. So.
And also it bears repeating, I think that as of August, they are no longer accepting permits to bring in fill to get yourself out of a flood zone. If you were previously in a flood zone, you can't raise up the level of bringing in fill. That's not. Right.
So one of the most counterintuitive things of all this is that you used to be able to not easily, wasn't easy, but you could get a letter of map revision. It's called CLOMAR, or you could get a conditional letter of map revision, CLOMAR. in order to demonstrate that you have like the cut fill balance or that you are enhancing the situation versus creating a problem. And they basically put a moratorium on all that during this process, which again, having gotten Clomars and Lomars, that seems like the exact opposite of what they would want to do, but that's what they're doing. So don't put any fill down.
For pavers.
Or do simple, this could even impact if you just want to repair a door, right?
I think if it's if the structure's existing and you're
Is that gonna be
doing
okay?
repairs, yeah, that's probably gonna be grandfathered in. But the insurance that the homeowner's insurance, the flood insurance is not. I mean, that's gonna likely go up, so.
Just also going to affect property values and your ability to sell your home. Yeah, it's kind of scary. Thank you, Peter.
That's it, Peter?
That's all I've got.
Thanks. Okay. Dad?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Just a couple of things. The Water Resources Division has accepted and given a case file to our water rights application. So that is continuing to move forward. That was with work with Todd Groundwater and Hyatt Geosciences that we've been working with. So I don't have anything to report more on that, but as we learn more, I will let you know. The team is doing great. Police and fire have been very busy. The courts have been busy with a lot of the tickets and things that the police have been writing. And so do the speed limit, or we'll see you in court. But it's been going really well. Public Works Department has been doing great. There was a water main break this week. The end of last week on Friday, and that break was caused by a utility company drilling into our water line, not once but twice. They hit it the first time, didn't create as much of a problem, and then the second time it went pretty well. So those of you that experienced some discolored water and things like that, it wasn't about an aged water system, as I saw on some of the online posts. This is probably in one of the newest parts of town. It just didn't survive the drill to go in there. So I was very proud of our team for getting to that very quickly and fixing it. Lead water line survey. Also, the Public Works Department had completed the lead water line survey, which is required for us for a healthy water system. And pleased to report, no lead lines were found. Not only in Gerhardt, but as far as I know, none were found during that survey in Oregon. So we were in pretty good shape along with the rest of Oregon. October City Council meeting highlights. The blog and the video from tonight's meeting is going to take us a few extra days because of the employee that's on vacation. But those will be posted, the video for this meeting, the day after, October 10th and 11th is when that will go up. 10th or 11th, depending on how things go. And then the last thing is Emergency Cash Day, October 27th, 9 to 11. At the fire department, Christy will be there to sign people up that want to store items and goods in our reserve storage space up in the hills in case of a natural disaster. Also, it's good to have Mr. Garrett. He appears to be online. I know that he's been on the East Coast and going through a lot of these things with the hurricane, and his community was quite devastated. So I'm very glad that him and his family are safe and that he's here tonight with us, albeit by phone, because he doesn't quite have enough internet access to make Zoom work. So he is phoned into our system. For now, that's all that I have, unless there's any questions. No, thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, so what we're going to do now is go to written and oral public communications. Anyone wishing to address the city council concerning items of interest not on the agenda may do so at this time. All remarks will be limited to 5 minutes per person. Requests to comment electronically must be submitted by email to the city recorder at info@cityofgerhart.com no later than 4 p.m. the day of the meeting. In-person attendees wishing to speak are required to sign in prior to the meeting. Okay. First, we're gonna go with the written comments, which are probably at the, underneath the Governor Kotek's letter. And if you go to the very back, there's a letter from Dana Mansell, there's a Justin Gibbs. And
There was a late submission today too.
I'm sorry, what?
There was a late submission today too that was on our desk when we got here.
And then there's the airport letter from Randall Henderson. Okay, any questions about these written comments? Okay. So we'll get to you, honestly. Shannon Smith, please state your name and address.
Hang on. I know you're okay.
Yeah,
You'll get sick of me with this, but.
I didn't want to say I am.
It's good because it's in our comp plan. I would request maybe a minute past, but there is a video I'm about to show that runs 2 minutes, 51 seconds. And it's.
The video is?
The video is, yes.
Okay, I gotta go into my office and run this, or it'll
Oh,
come over twice.
Oh, okay, well then, don't count my time yet. Shannon Smith, 774 Pacific Way, Gerhart, that way. The video that Chad is queuing up is of a flyover of the length of Neocoxie Creek from the estuary to about the forest up by the reserve. It was done above tree line by Paul Buffington, one of our great guys in town. And I'd like you to imagine an eagle or an osprey. In addition, watch for the sections of forest that are quite big blocks as the video goes past. And it goes pretty quickly, so. And it has music. There we go. So, I think we don't have sound. Any sound?
In your sound.
There you go.
Technical difficulty there, but the music's very nice in my office.
I'll bring a little speaker next. Thanks, Paul. It runs a little slow. Picking up me. There we go. It runs a little slow and this one, my speed must be faster at my house. I'll post this to some websites in town. This is Paul Buffington also has it on his site. My emphasis with this was to convey a couple things. One, that this is a classic treasure of Gerhardt. We have public beaches, thanks to Tom McCall, now decades that we've gotten to know we love and cherish. We have an estuary that is phenomenal with rich activities and all sorts of fun and beautiful changing scenery. We have Neocoxtee Creek, and for probably the last, I've been coming here since I was 3, so a long time it's been assumed it would just stay the same. I now live around it, or right on it, and it's changed. It has flooded 3 times since I've been here since 2007. Not extensively, but enough to know that things are a big deal for the tides and et cetera, and our weather storms that are much more intense. And as we know from now, North Carolina to Florida and communities down south, that it can be 10 times whatever the worst forecast ever was. So I just would like our community to be mindful of the change coming and the change that already exists for our lovely place. The other part that's changed is in the last 10 years since I lived at my place, the plots of land along the creek have changed from being classified as unbuildable to now undeveloped. That has changed a bit of the interest in building there. And of course, different things are changed now for septic, et cetera, but they tend to be places that are risky and have challenges for human beings to live in, both of the forests that exist there, as well as now we know the waterways and the variability. Bellingham, Washington looked at their trees and their forests and their community and sought to do an ordinance to inventory them on an emergency basis because they worried about the loss of these ancient trees. They're historic trees like we have. Most of the trees you see in that video are 300 years old. So I would encourage, I brought a copy of it. I will send it to each counselor of the Bellingham ordinance that gave 6 months to the city of Bellingham to do a complete inventory of the resource they had, not piecemeal it plot by plot, but actually look at their comprehensive treasure like we have here. So I'm going to leave this with and email each of the council members. But I'd like you to think about, again, this part of our plan. What are we going to leave for future generations? I think we've taken the creek for granted for a long time. That it would just always be there. It wouldn't be built upon enough such that the wildlife would stop coming. There's risk of that. 1 minute. Thank you, Carrie. I want us to think about this as the third treasure of Gerhardt. We have estuary, we have beach, we have our creek, and it's special. It has all sorts of wildlife and activities, just like our ocean side does. I will post also a petition for citizens to add their voice to encourage the city to take some action on this, to really look at the big picture. So that would be also posted in a couple sites for you to participate in and share your views on why this is important to our community and why we really need to take steps and communicate why we really want to save it comprehensively, not just spot by spot. So thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. All right, next up is Deanna Mansell. Please state your name and address.
I'm Deanna Mansell, 2945 Highway 101 North. I'd like to just expand upon the letter in your packet on the Seaside Airport. Did, some further research. So I would like to speak on the zoning text amendment issue to allow Seaside Airport expansion of uses on the RA zone. The minutes from the January 2024 Airport Committee meeting indicate that the airport needs more tie downs and pavement within the city limits. Ultimate goal is wider runways and an extension to Oster Road. Why is this a bad idea? The RA zone is an agricultural zone that is compatible with airport uses. Gerhart has the airport overlay zone ordinance that was established in February 13th, 1980, to further protect the airport from incompatible airport uses or incompatible land uses. Each city has the right to adopt their own comprehensive plans and zoning around the airport. The RA is the minimum of 1 acre lot. The airport overlay zone allows for non-conforming uses before the effective date of the ordinance. Regulations are not retroactive, which means the requirement to remove, lower, other changes or alteration of any structure or tree under 75 feet tall are grandfathered in. The existing paved runway footprint within the city of Gerhart was completed before 1980 as well. So that's kind of grandfathered in. Okay, reading the airport land use compatibility guidebook from 2003 are the limitations and restrictions on allowed uses within the 4 airport zones: runway protection zone, approach surface, direct impact area, and secondary impact area. The transition zone fans out 5,000 feet. Within the runway protection zone, no structures are permitted within 500 feet of the runway. Residential density shall not exceed 1 unit per acre. 500 feet to 1,500 feet is 2 units per acre. Under this criteria, I observed numerous encroachments in the runway protection zone, but all these properties are grandfathered in, and so are the spruce trees. Think what would happen if Gerhart did a text amendment on that land south of Oster Road. Seaside's ultimate goal is to extend the runway. In 2018, the Oregon Department of Aviation updated the Oregon Aviation Plan for Seaside Airport. The capital improvement plan may recommend additional projects that will be needed over the coming 10 years. Developed as part of the Oregon Aviation Plan, several projects are identified as necessary, improving the airport to meet all the airport's goals. Action needed to meet criteria: extend runway 789 feet, cost $1.8 million. Widen the runway width 10 feet, cost $1.8 million. Fuel depot, $200,000. The current airport committee has totally ignored the 100-year floodplain and wetlands that would restrict runway extensions and adding pavement for more tie downs. The FAA Executive Order 11988, dated 1977, floodplain management and protection, all airport development must avoid the floodplain. Actions in a floodplain must be designed to protect the natural and beneficial values. Because the funding isn't likely to come from the FAA, in February 2020, Seaside's Public Works Director, Dale McDowell, sent a letter to the Port of Astoria. He requested assistance for repairing taxiway and runways, tie downs, and anchors. The port's response: we've been instructed not to talk to you about the airport because of the accident at the airport. So in 2008, the plane took off from the runway, the engine was sputtering, and the next thing I knew, I heard the explosion. And somebody called me on the phone and told me the airport hit a house. I went over there, found out that the plane had killed 3 children and the 2 people in the plane. So years ago, when I was on the airport committee, the city of Seaside had proposed that all of the property owners around the airport assign a hold harmless easement agreement, just so the city won't be held liable. That idea never took off. So this airport is very unsafe. And I'm alerting this council of the potential actions by the Seaside Airport Committee that may have negative effects on the residents of Gerhardt. So thank you.
Thank you, Deanna. Okay. Penny, would you state your name and address, please?
Yes, Penny Sable, 1149 North Cottage Avenue, Gerhardt. And I might be putting up the horse before the carriage here. I read Mr. Maury's proposal to give the city land to put the fire station down there. My concern, because I have a lot of friends down there too, is has anybody checked with all those people that this is a highly residential area and it could be a super nuisance to them? And that's all I wanted to say.
Okay, thank you.
That's short and sweet.
I believe that's Marilyn Gabals. Gilbaugh.
Yeah.
Did you sign in?
No, I thought we were just signing in to say we were here. I have nothing to say. I'm here.
Thank you, Marilyn. Sorry about your name. I do that at least once a meeting.
All right, good. Short and sweet, as Penny said.
Short and sweet.
Short and sweet.
Okay, so we're gonna move on. This is going to be the time that the sender's wedding application is reviewed. And you all have that at the end of your packet. And would it be Mrs. Sender or would it
It was the senders,
Mrs. Sender?
like they turned to sender with a, in plural.
Okay, thank you.
It's okay, I dated my husband for 2 months before I figured out it wasn't Sanders.
All right, so here you are.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm Lisa Sanders. And
Name and address, please.
name and address 101 North Ocean here, and do you want Portland to speak?
No, just,
Okay, here, 101 North Ocean, and we're here to make application for the special event, which is Paul and Justin's wedding in July. Across the street from our house is the park, the Dunes Park, and I understand this is kind of a case of first impression that this is the first application made for a special events license to serve alcohol at the wedding, wine and beer, and food, and all with licensed servers and 2 event planners who will be watching for 6 to 8 hours during the time of the event. And there'll be music and celebration and happiness and no worries about floodplains or which I'm happy to report. And I did have one question and I'm certainly willing to address any question the council may have, and I appreciate your time and listening to it.
you have one question?
I do.
Okay, what's your question?
Well, in number 5, on the conditions of use, it says obtain event insurance and provide evidence 5 business days in advance of the event of coverage in the amount of $5 million per claim, naming the city as an additional insured. I called the insurance company that you use for events here, like Fireman's Ball and all of that, the dancing in the street and selling of alcohol, and they said it's not, they cover an aggregate claim, but not per claim. So if we have 75 people at the wedding, each person could file a claim that would far, if they each wanted to sue for $5 million, they could, but the insurance company says, no, we don't do that. So my question was, would it be okay just to submit the same, to the same insurance company you guys use for city things like, because I can't find insurance, well, we can't afford to pay $5 million per claim. And I don't think the city really meant that per claim. And it's, Peter, do you want to look at that? You probably have more experience than me.
Yeah, I didn't develop this form, but my guess is the intent was per event.
Aggregate claim,
Right, so like for each event,
right,
like so the fireman's wall would have aggregate of $5 million for
Right.
that event. If there was day two, they would need to get a second
right.
policy for day two.
Okay, so I think that just need, from a legal standpoint, I feel like that should be amended to say, and I can resubmit it so that it says that, just so we're protected as well.
I mean, it's up to the council
Right.
to interpret that, but that seems the likely.
Well, it seems hard, it doesn't seem reasonable that, for example, when one of our businesses, the Pacific Way, we tell them that they have to change their insurance requirements based on the number of folks that they have coming in per night, so I think that you're correct. I think that's reasonable.
So should we redraft it so that that's clear from a legal standpoint?
We could just cross it out and write aggregate and I could initial it.
Okay,
And we've got public records.
I don't have a problem with Peter doing that. Does anyone on the council have a problem?
Not me.
Okay,
So that was my only concern, but I want to address any concerns you may have as a council.
does anyone on the council have concern?
I would just like to make sure that if we do approve this, that law enforcement has a special note on their calendar to make sure that we are fully staffed on that day. We're aware of it.
Okay. The other thing is, I've got number 2 and number 3. I don't have number 1. It's kind of like I've got missing parts to the whole.
I think that's more in the page minutes, and there should just be 3 pages attached to this entirely. The second one is the OLC or the application that we were just talking about.
Right.
And then the third is the addendum for the events application, but I don't think there's any other pages.
Okay, it's just when it starts with number 2, it makes me wonder where's number 1.
What is number 1?
I think number 1 is the prior page.
The prior page,
So there's the application is essentially number 1, and then number 2 and 3 are the narrative functions of the application.
Well, the
Or maybe we
application,
could,
the
yeah,
application sheet has 2 sides.
She's expanding on.
oh,
number two
the
and number
application
three.
has 2 sides and I only have 1. There's my
Would
problem.
you like to see it?
No, I will get a copy of the 2 sides. Thank you.
My problem too.
To me, it looks like a narrative, and she's referring to
Yeah.
number 2 where it says see addendum on next page, and then she goes number 2, that's her narrative to that, and then we'll go down below that, this is number 3, that's the narrative for that.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that for me. Does anyone want to make a motion or we just need consensus, right? So all those in favor of giving them,
I have a question.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt you. I have a question. Just in general, and this is not impugning that your guests are going to be wild and crazy by any means. When people are drinking, half-drunk cups of alcohol get left around, they might end up maybe not in the park. I'm just wondering who's gonna police the leftover and trash scenario?
We're responsible for the trash as part of the application. And so the event planner and we will make sure that that happens. And what we will have are bracelets so that only people who are of age and allowed to drink will serve the alcohol. And as Chad and I were discussing, if Uncle Bob goes off with, someone will corral Uncle Bob and bring him in. But so the two and the event planners are kind of used to that too. So kind of they will signal to us, so then we can provide transportation, Uncle Bob or Aunt Jane.
Will the invitees understand that it's to be contained in the park?
Yeah, we're gonna announce at the wedding.
That's great.
Now, they will be using bathrooms at the 2 houses across the street, so we'll have a table where they can get drinks. I mean, they literally just go across the street.
Okay, wonderful.
And we'll speak on our wedding. We are the youngest in our family, so we are 30, but all the guests are over 30, and most of people our age have young children, so it'll be a very young children focused wedding. I think the biggest drinkers at this wedding will be 70+, which are the parents and the graders in the community. So it's gonna be a very young child-focused wedding, a lot of games and music in the park for little nieces and nephews and family members like that. Yeah, and most of our friends are having kids now too, so. It's a 30-year-old wedding with most of the drinking being the older.
Are you the one getting married?
Yeah, this is,
Well, congratulations.
thank you.
Okay. No more questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Congratulations.
Thank you.
Early.
Congratulations. So you can just get the act in.
Get.
Yeah, just.
Great, thank you.
What time's this hoedown gonna start?
Don't tell him.
You don't want them
You had him in order.
Okay. Yeah, so we're gonna move on to the real business of city.
Well, it sounds like a pretty serious business already. I mean, but you were talking about Peter's stuff.
Okay,
Yeah, thank you.
yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you.
I'll give you a half a minute, but
Get out of here. Congratulations. Thank you. Have fun.
okay. And now, Bob, you have a presentation?
Wasn't going to care, but I'm happy to. Bob Maury, 271 D Street here. Chad, you and I have been talking to what, about a month and a half about different locations on our side where we can do public safety building and do, work. Public building. So this ties into conversation we've gone trying pretty good maps and then just about that is whatever. Last week on Thursday, Chad had called me and just told me what he was doing and said, yeah, that's right. That isn't going to work for public works over there because it'd be in floodplain. We have this stuff going on with FEMA right now. And then somebody who works with me looked at the front of the school and said, why don't we put the fire station there? And in 4.5 years of dealing with this project, we had never even thought about it. But it tied into looking at the project over the land over on Highway 101, which I understand, Chad, what's the range, that price range that we're talking about?
About 900,000.
Okay, 900,000 for that piece of property, which has a lot of defects with it in terms of ingress, egress. And Timmy, my wife, Timmy and I were talking and just said, we don't need the land in front of our school or a former school. It's going to always be a garden. It'll be grass, I'll plant a few trees. We know where the septic is, capacity is. That makes sense. And then we took the same thing and said, hey, let's transport. Let's look west for access to a public works area behind the old playground there, the fenced playground. And again, we're going to landscape that as our backyard, because again, we have it, Garrett knows, we haven't got the staff report yet, but we are submitting to do one single family house, no further subdivision. We're just going to use the existing school as one single family house, no further subdivision allowed on the property. So we know now generally how we want to use the land. It gave us an opportunity to say, hey, let's contact the city. We're in a time where we're having to make a decision. What's our long-term plan for public works, for public safety building? We happen to have the land that we can donate. So from our standpoint, no harm to us. We can donate it. We're on schedule for planning commission on October 10th to be for an R1 zone for the one house. That'll get through that. Once we know we have zoning, so we know what we are working with long-term, then we're in a position to say, let's look at doing something on a site on the west side of Highway 101, near the center of town. And like the lady mentioned, where you've got something on the other side of the street, you're gonna have to make a decision where you want to be. But it gives you a chance to have two options that will be freehold options. And we'll donate the land if there's a fire station going there. If there's no fire station, we'll keep the land and we'll have a big yard in front. But you're gonna have an easy site where you never have to stage to build either public works or a new fire station. You can build and never have to stage. So we aren't trying to figure out where we can put our equipment. We can keep operating right where we're at. It's a very doable deal from our end. It's land we are happy to, probably $1.5 million worth of land if you try to go out and buy it, but it's not out there to give. And it was something we can give as a family. So that's the extent of what we're doing. And hopefully by the end of the 10th, people will understand that we are just one house. That's all we'll be there. We'll have a lot of green open space. And that's what's happening. So that's what happened. And it was all spontaneous. It did not even exist as an idea until Thursday night last week. So thank you very much, Carrie. Appreciate it. Any
Thank you.
questions? I'm happy to answer.
Any questions?
Here.
Hi, Mr. Moore. Hi.
Thanks, Carl.
The property looks beautiful, by the way, but I have some concerns. When you first purchased a property, you invited the city councilors to take a tour of it, and I toured with Paulina Cockroach. And at that time, you had mentioned that the classrooms were going to be for low-income apartments. And that you talked about a lot of things. One of them was having a volunteer library. And then you said that you were going to have a person in one of the little modules on the property to oversee the project. Remember that?
No, first of all, never low income housing because our initial thought was, by the way, then you learn about the building and say everything you thought was wrong because you understand the structure. What to do, seniors, senior apartment on the
Yes.
side,
Yes.
seniors, not low income. So
Right.
I've been approached by people here who have 4-bedroom homes, want to stay with their friends and have no place to stay in Dearborn. That was before we bought the property. And then we
Okay,
were gonna do something outside, but we didn't know enough about the property.
I understand. Okay, then after that, you had talked a little bit with Chad about donating some of the property to the city. And then later, there was no person on site in one of the little modules, and those modules were taken out and the classrooms were removed. Then you said you wanted to sell the portion of property that you were gonna give to the city, and then you wanted 30,000 for it.
I'm sorry, I have no idea what you're talking
I thought so. Then,
about.
then you wanted to put up low-cost housing and live in the main building, right? Which is kind of what you're talking about now. And then you mentioned that you would offer your property to store emergency vehicles while they build the public safety building. Then later, you said, no, I'm not gonna store the emergency vehicles there, but now you want to put the public safety building on the property. So my question to you is, you have changed so many times what you want to do on that property. Who's to say you're not gonna change your mind again? Because there have been many different scenarios that you have proposed or talked about. And I just wanna make sure you're not gonna change your mind again. That's my, I guess I didn't have a question, I guess that's just what I wanted to say.
Appreciate your statement. Now, okay, you want to have a response to your statement?
You can, and I might be wrong, I don't know, that's just what I've
But
learned.
let's just say, from my perspective, for our perspective, you are wrong, have been for a long time. Remember, you and I talked about trying to do maybe a volunteer library and you were told not to talk to me like Paulina.
No, I was never told that.
Oh, well, that's what you told me. So that's my recollection. Because she didn't want you getting involved. So this type of stuff has gone on for us for 4 years. All we've done is make the property look better. That was our objective in buying it. And try to figure out what to do with it. We have plan commission last year. The mayor's wife, when we last did this, mayor's wife said we knew what the price was, $675,000. Never heard the price. But we had to ask Justine. I knew Justine and Susan Penrod in the school district. Never asked him the price. And my broker had told me the price that his clients were. I never do business with the broker. But that came out from the mayor's wife. Then we did a nice redaction that shows that back at that point in time, when we bought the thing and we were under contract to buy it in November of 2020. I look on it and we're under contract to buy it. And I'm looking at the calendar and the mayor or whoever makes the calendar, you make it, Chad, whoever has to sign off on what's on the calendar on the agenda.
On the agenda, I think so. Yeah, it depends on the situation.
Well, we had the school that I have, my wife and I had under contract to buy. On the agenda, well, we had interest because nobody from the city ever gave us a call that was not going to be on the agenda, so we listened it on Zoom. And then we had a party who had it, maybe at some time under contract, because we never heard of the party before, expressing what they wanted to do with it was uses that were totally unable to be done in the city in the zone, because they were all commercial uses, which you cannot do on the property, no more commercial. Their objective was to make a profit. They were going to make a profit, and all the uses they had would have required a zone that would, I think it's your mixed use zone, Chad, or something rather, you could do 40%.
RCPD.
Yeah, you can do 40% commercial on it. But that's the zone that we specifically did not submit an art application because you can't do it. So we listened to that. We felt sorry for them because they were involved with foster children. My niece who works for me has a foster child that they've adopted. We felt, just concerned. We called her broken the next day and said, don't they know? Your wife submitted a hand redaction from the school district that shows those people showed up at that meeting chaired by, I think, Matt Brown at that time as mayor. They showed up at that meeting knowing that they were offered by the board, the school board, and just that was submitted. Thank God your wife got it, except she hand redacted stuff over the school district's reactions. And so they knew they were offered the same price we offered for the property. And they knew that when they showed up at that meeting. And they went that whole dog and pony show with Matt Brown, explaining to you what they were going to do, their dreams. But they've been notified that they had the ability to get us out of the deal. And we did come in. We came in a price, I think 40% less than that 675,000, but we closed immediately and took on the risk, and we expected to be sitting there for 2 or 3 years and have no idea what's going to happen with the property. We've played this game now for 4 years. So why things change? If you're dealing with that uncertainty, there's a reason. Where we're at now is we dealt with it. I think we've shown that we want the thing to look better coming into the city. We're going to have it be one house. Our last planning commission meeting, the chair ends the meeting. We made sure everybody on that planning commission got a chance to speak, and we have them on the record. Then we withdrew it before we sent it to you. Because again, it's nonsensical. Garrett recommended, and that was his first meeting as representing the city as planner. Garrett recommended it be accepted with conditions because he had read the request. We had the chair of the planning commission end that meeting by saying, you can't look at past decisions to get guidance, and there's no need for housing. Well, that's fine. I said, thank you. I now know what I'm doing. So we're going to go for it, and we changed our entire plan to how we approach the project. Because if you have that type of preconceptions, that's what we've gone through it backwards. So that's how we got where we're at. It's a mosaic. If it gives you some background, it's at least on the record. So
Thank you.
we have no need to do a change. We know where we're going. If we get a zone change, we'll have a single family home, and we're happy to give the land away. If that's not sufficient, I can't give you any better thing than that. If we don't have a zone change, we still have no idea what we have. So,
Well, I appreciate your comments.
thank you for your time.
Just a second, Bob, my wife has never redacted anything that she's come to. Your timeline is a little skewed because I've only been mayor for 2 years and my wife has never come in front of me and done anything with the school property.
Terry, I'm sorry, I misunderstand. This was on the planning commission meeting. That was the meeting that you went to the owners association. Remember after that? That was the planning commission meeting.
Okay,
Remember what you said. One of my achievements is turning down the rezoning of the school. That was what you said at the owners association meeting. That was an achievement. You did.
Okay.
Remember when I came in and remarked, you never given it to you to make a decision on?
Okay, thank you, Bob. I appreciate it.
So I would just remind you that we have a planning commission hearing coming up, and I don't know what the outcome of that will be, obviously, because it hasn't happened yet, but an appeal would come to the city council.
Right.
And so I would I haven't heard anyone get into the merits of the application. It wouldn't be appropriate for that to happen at this time because that application is in front of the planning commission, but I would just caution everyone. Because we do have a live land use application.
Thank you, Peter. Okay, we're gonna,
I'm gonna leave you now.
Okay.
You have any more questions?
Yeah, I have a question too.
Thank you very much for your offer. It's kind of you to make that offer. There's so many moving parts to this and there are so many questions that we'll have about this. I hope you're not in a huge hurry over this.
Sure, that is really the benefit that you've got. From our standpoint, we aren't getting any money out of this and we have no time pressure. So you can take as much time to build the facility. We aren't gonna get any money out of it. We're just gonna make the land available to build on and for the city to develop. So it is, if you want to ponder it, no matter what we've gone through in the past, we live here, we think having a new public works facility out before we have space, make a decision, we have two choices, you can park a space on point A down here or down there, but you might find that, geez, it's a lot easier to build on soil that is, you can test, and are you thinking of possibly doing the testing, Chad, on that side this next week?
And that's a discussion that we're gonna have a little bit later with the geotech, but just to also make a point with this is that the Ordway family has decided to pull their willingness to sell to the city at the moment. They actually have to sell a little bit faster because of family issues. Then we can wait. We've got to get through at the earliest, the November 2025 election to see if a bond even passes before we can purchase the property. They need to sell it before that. So tonight you're going to hear from Jesse Steiger from Koch Group in regards to some geotech work that we want to do. We had 2 sites planned to do that geotech work. So now with the Ordway's out, we currently only have the 1 site being considered, which is the current location, unless that the city council gives us any other direction. Geotech work would be important no matter where we put the building in your heart, as the soils are very to design the type of foundation for a critical infrastructure building. It is a very expensive piece of that puzzle, and we want to make sure that we build something that can withstand a possible tsunami, or storms or earthquake and that sort of thing. We're required to build a building that's like that. So long story short, geotech is still on the agenda for a little bit later to get into more detail. We did have 2 places, now we're down to 1.
So I have a question for you. So if we decide that this might be a site that we need to think about or want to think about, who would it be, Klosh, or would it be Garrett, or both of them, who would compare the 2 sites just as far as, septic, elevation, that type of thing? So, I mean, this sounds like a big work session to me to discuss all these pros and cons and get the rest of the pieces, some of the other pieces pulled in.
Right, our intention with the Ordway property and with the current location was to do just that, a work session to inform the community and the council what's going on, what we've learned. That's why tonight we're going to be looking at an architect engineer firm and a geotech firm. And yes, it will take people such as Garrett and Jesse Steiger to assist us with collecting all that information so that we can make a good solid report. So if the council was to so choose that this to be an option, we would include that.
are you good?
Do we have to make that decision tonight?
We can't. This was not on the agenda. We shouldn't even actually be discussing it in depth like this, but Dana, you got some question?
Well, just about the proposal, and I know Bob wants to get out of here, but I want to ask him publicly because I know that this has already gone out to the public and the public's already forming opinions on this. So real quickly, so you're saying here there's 2 tax lots and it's, if I recall, it's like 8.5 acres. Give or take. Okay, would we have to adjust tax lots or do anything to that?
Basically, what we do, the way we look at doing it right now is we rezone the 5.37 acres, the school buildings on. That's the only lot we're dealing with. We'll rezone that, 5.37
5.
acres. That's rezones to an R1, and then we give you how we end up doing processing. Peter can take a look at that.
Okay,
And what I. Yeah, and so
No, go ahead. I'm
that'll be a process.
okay, and then when you guys were talking, have you thought about any conditions you would put on the property if we were to take it on? Would there be limitations? I mean, would we own it outright?
Or you'll end up owning the property outright. What I wanted to do is make sure that we have an attractive landscape entrance coming into our house, which will be the main drive out. I also want to make sure that we're looking at an attractive landscape entrance coming into the road that's in front of the house to the east or to the west of us. Then we have an attractive entrance there. So we have just the whole thing is a cohesive whole that's attractive entrance to the city.
Okay, so
Other than that.
just so I'm clear, how does that work when we do up a bill of sale? Do we, I mean, we show a bill of sale with no dollar signs? Do you do it as a tax write-off?
We'll end up trying to figure out if there's a tax write-up on it or not. It's going to be a gift regardless.
So we would need to bring an appraiser to determine what the value would be, because it's worth more than $500. I think the geotechnical work, as well as, tsunami and other considerations, and anything we are going to do has to be palatable to the voters, because the voters are going to have to approve this thing. And so they're going to be essentially the ones that are selecting the site and the amenities. But without that geotechnical information and other things, people aren't going to be able to make an informed decision.
Right. And have you talked to any of the neighbors? Because what you're proposing is essentially going to affect the neighbors on your west side. And it's different from the school. I mean, I know that people around here are used to dealing with the fire station. That's a little different if you bought a house next to a fire station than if you're now being subjected to a 24-hour operation where people are 10 cars are showing up at 3 o'clock in the morning, starting up a diesel, going out with sirens or whatever. It could be problematic for the neighbors. Have you discussed it with them?
Right. Remember, none of this even existed as a thought until last Thursday night, and that's.
I'm not trying to make you defensive. I'm asking what work do we still need to do on this?
Well,
So that would be,
I think that really comes back to communities. Look, I mean, we're surrounded by residential here with fire engines going off.
okay,
If it's $2 million less to build down there, what does the community want to do? From our standpoint, we'll give it to you or we'll keep this along.
okay.
We make the choice.
And so no conditions. So let's say theoretically, 30 years down the road, Gerhart, if conditions change in Gerhart, and they no longer need that property for this, is it Gerhart's property to sell then? Or does it have to revert back to you? Do you know?
And that's a good question. I haven't thought of it, but I'm not going to be here, so we'll leave it.
Well, I hope I still am.
Down the road, no problem.
I hope I still am. I may not remember this conversation, but I hope I still am. And I'll still be paying taxes on whatever we decided to do. Okay, so I'd like to make a couple of points since we are on the public. We still, just even though we have an obligation to our in-town folks, we also have an obligation to the fire district, which pays almost a third of our budget. So that's a comment. Define low volume use, because I don't see a public building, any public safety building that hosts town hall meetings where we get 40 to 70 people as a low volume use, or when there could be a natural disaster event. Do you think that your septic would hold up to the septic allowance?
What you'll end up doing is taking a look. We have data thermometer testing for 2 winters, and it gives you an idea of where we have septic capacity. You're going to have a septic consultant. We use EMS, who the golf course uses. They'll look at it, they'll give an idea of what your septic capacity, we know where additional septic capacity is.
Okay.
Okay.
And BIOP is going to be, again, we talked about how that might affect insurance rates, and it also, we're going to have a bond insurance around. Also, as far as your plan, I think you're imagining one large building, but to be honest with you, one of the things that I'm imagining is our essential building is gonna have to be built to very robust standards. It's gonna be an expensive building. So I have always, in my mind, and we haven't got to design, but in my mind, I've always thought we would build more than one building, one that was essential, that was built to very robust standards, and one that was non-essential, that housed offices and other things like that. But I've never imagined the fire station being permanently on the Ordway property or any other property, just to be clear on that.
Yeah, I would agree with you. My approach to the building would be exactly the same.
Okay.
Separate the services, build it less expensive, essential
Okay.
component, whatever we do.
Okay, and then the last thing I'm gonna say is just, and I wanna be very careful about saying this because I don't want it to be taken the wrong way, but I think that there are some other legal issues that we would have to pursue with the state because you're a candidate and you could potentially be mayor at that point, so that could open up some other things that we'd have to explore.
And my counsel, we discussed, and I got to recuse myself from everything on it, so.
Well, not only that, but if you were to do like a tax write-off, or if this were to negatively affect your property, that could be a problem of under 244.040. So you might talk to your counsel about that. Okay.
Okay,
It's a number, but what is it?
I'm sorry, ORS 244.040. That says what elected officials can do and what they can't do as far as within their review.
thank you. Okay, now we can move on. Next point of business is a 3-minute comment. Oh, wait, no, it isn't. It's the ordinance 942. Preservation and removal of trees, GZO text amendments.
So Garrett is in Asheville, North Carolina, so, and we are
Garrett is
all,
actually online, Peter.
oh, he's
He is
phoned in.
here.
Okay,
Yes.
Oh, nice.
Garrett, how do you want to tag team this?
So I can offer some brief remarks, and Peter,
Sure.
would you like to follow up after that?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Well, you have ordinance 942, which presents amendments to tree removal regulations in the city of Gearhart. This is something, sounds like there's members of the public here that are interested, so I'll give a bit of background, even though I know y'all in city council are getting quite familiar with it. Planning Commission initiated this discussion in 2023 and held several public meetings where they discussed potential amendments to the tree removal regulations, a wide range of topics that they considered, and ultimately decided that they wanted to focus on improving the information that city staff were getting on tree removals so that they could communicate with other members of the public and understand the frequency and location of tree removals throughout the city of Gearhart. So they proposed amendments focused on that purpose. And then throughout the last year, since early 2024, City Council has made some additional changes to the proposal. Most recently with the result that you have tonight, Ordinance 942. So just to summarize real briefly, the city of Gearhart already has tree protections that protect most types and sizes of trees in wetlands within 50 feet of streams and in the beach and dune overlay zone. And Ordinance 942 doesn't change those protections. So trees in those areas are protected. Ordinance 942 affects trees throughout the rest of the city of Gearhart. And Gearhart already has protections for some of those trees throughout the city. Right now, anyone who wants to remove more than 5 trees has to obtain a permit from the city. And the permit decision is made by the Planning Commission based on some findings that they have to make on why you really need to remove so many trees, more than 5 trees in a single year. And it does only apply to trees of a certain size. And so that's sort of like the gist of what you have right now. And Ordinance 942 that we've drafted to the best of our ability based on City Council's feedback, broadly speaking, will protect more trees throughout the city, in that now you would have to get a permit to remove any tree of a certain size. And if you want to remove more than 3 in 12 months, then you'd have to get a permit from City Council, where some special findings have to be made. So we're moving from a 5 tree threshold to a 3 tree threshold per year. And Ordinance 942 also includes some additional protections for trees that are greater than 55 inches in diameter. With those trees, you would have to obtain a permit from City Council to remove just 1. Ordinance 942 also introduces the concept of heritage trees, which are trees that have some unique historic or aesthetic value. And with heritage trees, if the City Council, with a landowner's approval, designated a tree as a heritage tree, then thereafter removing one of those would require a permit from City Council following a hearing as well. There's some additional changes that City Council worked on over the last year, including ones that make it easier for property owners to remove trees when there is a hazard situation, so that city regulations do not cause any property owner to think twice or delay before correcting a hazard. And I think that that is the briefest summary I can give you of the ordinance as we've arrived at it at this point. And I'm going to leave it at that for now, but I'm available to answer questions. And I think that Peter has some things to say as well.
Yeah, we also made some changes based on feedback that we got from members of the public. Like under the definition B, we defaulted to the state's the species listed as noxious weeds by the state of Oregon Department of Agriculture. So we captured all of those trees. And then as that list updates in the future, if it updates, we won't have to amend our ordinance. We would just note that that's a noxious weed, so it doesn't count. And, you know, this has been kind of a slow going process because we've done all these amendments in public meetings and had all these questions in public meetings. And Garrett and I have done our best, made our best effort to anticipate what you as a council would want to look at. And again, this is, we might not have captured everything. We might not have gotten it right. I have no idea whether this will be adopted or not, but it kind of reflects what we believe that you wanted us to do based on the comments that were made during the meeting.
Okay. Yes.
There's a couple of things I wanted to address about this. I spoke with a few citizens in Gerhardt who pointed out that the replacement tree size is not practicable. So I did some research. I called Brims, asked them what size trees they carried. I talked to a place in Hillsborough, and I went and met with the tree gal at Dennis's 70s in Seaside. And she made recommendations to me. I told her that if at all possible, we'd like to keep our business in the area, meaning them, among other people. And so she made several recommendations about wording for replacement tree size, which I thought were excellent. And so I would like to propose those changes, if I may.
Yeah.
Her recommendation was that for the evergreens or conifer trees, that we say, we describe the replacement tree as being 5 foot. And then her recommendation for the deciduous trees with it is that we describe it as 10-gallon size. All of which Dennis's carries would not have a problem procuring for people.
10-gallon size?
Yeah. So I'd like to propose that we make those changes to make it easier on everybody. The second thing is, it seems like there ought to be under C, there ought to be wording about the invasive species. So C is under the applicability. This section applies for removal of trees in the city of Gerhart except, and then the exceptions are listed, and maybe the invasive tree wording could go under that section, because if it's an invasive tree, it can be taken out no matter what.
Well, so when we define tree under B, we specifically said that anything listed by the Oregon Department of Agriculture's website was not a tree. So for the purposes of the entire ordinance, those are trees.
Okay.
I mean, I know it looks like a tree and you're like, it's not a tree.
It's a little confusing.
It's a little counterintuitive, but it's not a tree.
It's up to you guys. I just.
Yeah, I mean, we can make an amendment if you like.
I just think it'd be nice to have it under the exceptions. I mean, seems like that'd be a little clearer. And noxious is probably not the right word. It probably should be invasive.
So they're invasive species and then they're noxious weeds.
So should we put both?
I you know, I can only do whatever.
Want to protect either one.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we can certainly make that amendment.
And are you ready for this? There's one more to that we weren't throughout this that Deanna pointed out, and that is that some of the trees that are dangerous to septic are not necessarily listed as noxious or invasive, but yet would we want to protect those? And probably not. And so.
Septic is addressed in here.
Right, I know, but I don't know that there's an exception. As long as there's I just want to make sure that there's an exception in there for the trees that might qualify as heritage trees, because I think if you drive around town, you might be surprised by how many trees could qualify as a heritage, especially protected trees. So what do you think, Peter?
So if we have a separate category that we're exempting because it negatively impacts septic systems, we would need to figure out what those trees are and specifically call those out as part of the ordinance.
Okay.
Because the other two are defined by the state versus this one would be like based on
Right.
best practices.
And I don't think those types of trees are going to change so much. So I actually personally would be okay with them being listed. I did some research today and found that there are some that are well, go ahead and you finish and I'll talk. I'm sorry.
Garrett, I had a question for you. The point system that's in here for heritage trees, is there a source for that I can read about?
It's from the City of West Lynn's system. And the purpose of the system is that if we want to protect trees that have historic or aesthetic value, we need to have some more specific criteria to go on so that it's the decision on designating a heritage tree isn't arbitrary.
Yes, I understand that. I just wondered what the source was. And then another question pertaining to that is the location factor point values. Do you know why they, or maybe Peter, you know this?
Yeah,
Why they would list commercial areas is more valuable than,
So I used to represent Westland and I still occasionally do projects for them. So if the city of Westland was originally two cities, it was the city of Willamette and then it was the city of Westland. So the historic area of Westland is along a road called Willamette Falls Drive. So Willamette Falls Drive itself has the oldest commercial structures in Westland, and then the neighborhood that's on the east side of Willamette Falls Drive is the historic designated neighborhood, and then on the west side of Willamette Falls Drive, there's some original kind of not like pioneer cabins, but kind of cabins that have very old, like 150-year-old oak trees in front of them. So they, much like our historic kind of downtown, they have that little historic downtown, and then the other parts of Westland that are commercial are kind of like the highway is for us. So the reason they did that is because they believed, in their city, the trees are the eldest trees are in that area, and then also because that is the area that has higher foot traffic. So the idea is that people would be able to enjoy the trees because they're in that commercial area that's open to the public. And it's quite walkable for Westland because it's relatively flat as compared to the rest of the state.
Can I say something?
Sure.
I can speak from experience. Any tree that you plant in your yard, these things are water pores. It's going to get into your septic field. So when you're talking about protecting your septic field, you shouldn't have any trees around your yard. Zero. And the other thing is, I take exception to your drip line and what the root zone is.
it's not mine.
But you took it from someplace else.
Nice.
Okay. In the Columbus Day storm, when the classic fir blew down, it took 1.5 acres of ground. Our trees don't go deep because there's a lot of surface water. So they spread out. And the closer they are to your septic field, the more they're going to spread out. Because that's where the water is. So I want you to be aware of that when you're making up this.
Right, that's an average. Absolutely. It's not particular to a particular tree. It is approximately.
But if we're talking about trees that are invasive into the septic fields, and you can put in a sand filtration system or something like that, it's almost $20,000 today. Okay, it's a huge investment. I mean, the maple trees on my property, when they get to be about this big around, they're already into my septic.
Can I make a suggestion? Because we're getting so late and we have some, and it seems like every time we already have identified things that need to change. Could we do a work session for this and then we can hash all of this out and get to the other things we need to do today? What do you think about doing that? Because it sounds like everybody has some things to suggest and to discuss.
Are you all right with that? It's going to be a soon work session.
Yep.
Okay?
Okay.
All right. Do you have a problem with that?
No, I think he's gonna need to get back to poker.
Get back to poker?
Portland.
It's a good thing I've got hearing aids. I just wish I used them. Okay, so we're gonna move on and put this into a work session. All right, here we go. Domestic Violence Awareness Month proclamation. whereas the first domestic violence month was observed in October 1987, the same year that saw the initiation of the first national domestic violence toll-free hotline, and in 1989, Congress designated October as the National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And whereas the domestic violence is a pattern of assaultive and coercive behaviors, including physical, psychological, sexual, and economic abuse, social isolation, and stalking that are used to maintain power and control over a person's intimate partner. And whereas the crime of domestic violence violates an individual's dignity, privacy, security, safety, and basic human rights, and victims should have help to find the compassion, comfort, and healing they need. And whereas 1 in every 3 women and 1 in 4 men in the US experience rape, physical violence, and/or stalking by an intimate partner in their lifetime, domestic violence is the single largest cause of injury and homicide for women. And whereas approximately 15.5 million children are exposed to domestic violence every year. Children exposed to domestic violence experience terror, isolation, guilt, helplessness, grief, and have a higher risk of engaging in criminal behavior and substance abuse and becoming victims of crime. And whereas domestic violence impacts the health and well-being of our community, and whereas it is incumbent on every citizen to play a role in preventing and ending domestic violence, now therefore that the Gerhardt City Council hereby proclaims October 1st, 2024 through October 31st, 2024 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in Gerhardt, and invites all community members and local agencies to join in this month of observance by speaking out against domestic violence, raising awareness, and supporting survivors. Dated this 2nd day of October, 2024. Is there any objection to that?
No.
Okay. We'll sign that after tomorrow morning. Moving on. Architect and Engineering RFP Selection Committee final report. Robert.
Thank you for calling me Robert. Well, I was the community member involved with the selection committee, and we had 8 architects that we reviewed and received, and the selection committee independently evaluated all the scores and proposals. In other words, we got the 8 architects, and then we got all their paperwork, which was about like this. And I know that most of the committee members went through those at least 3 to 4 times. And after we reviewed the 8, we got the total down to 3 architects, and that's through a scoring system. And I have to comment on this because I think it's interesting, but out of the 8, we came down to 3. But it's interesting how the scoring was, I think the whole group sort of all came down to 3. It wasn't widespread, I don't think at all. So then we got down to 3 who were invited for interview. We conducted 3 interviews on September 9th. And the format was 20 minutes presentation, 40 minutes question and answers. And they were independently scored again. And finally, after all this, we came up with one that was I feel really, it was very good. And so that was FAA architecture and interiors. And like I say, the process, I've never been in that process before. I've been in construction a lot, but never sift through architects to see who's who. But I think the whole group. And this group has done both fire and police. Most of the others, were just either fire. So I believe this is probably why they're there, and they are very well. And the last presentation that they did with the three, they really stood out, and I believe they're gonna be very good for CC or Gerhard to utilize. And that's about it. I'd like to thank Jesse with the Klosh group. He sort of guided us through this whole thing. It was very helpful, I think, that all the people involved, so. That's it.
Thank you, Robert. You may ask him a question.
Can you give us an idea of what was on the scoring system, like what criteria were on the scoring system?
Yeah, I can do that, I think.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, I'm just.
That's okay, I'm prepared.
I think it was in your packet.
Actually, we looked in their packages,
I think it was in your packet.
yeah, in all their packages, they had, of course, a letter.
Right.
And then relevant project experience, key personnel and subcontractors, like some of them are in-house and some of them have out. Approach to site evaluation. Approach, very important to community development. That was one that we really had to look at closely. And that's pretty much it, But the packets, if you put them all together and you lay them all out on the floor, the way I did it was went through each one of them in the first category, the second, and then go back twice and 3 times and finally, but nobody gets to see anybody's score. We hand that over to Jesse and then they calculate it down. So like I said, I was very surprised that the group was very tight and came down to the 3. And at the very end, it was very obvious who people wanted because they were outstanding.
Thank you.
All right. Chad.
There is nothing more that we need to do with that. That was the portion of the presentation from Robert to assist you with getting to know everything about the selection. The next order of business is new business, RFP request for funds to architecture and engineering services. Okay.
Yeah.
So in July, council approved publishing a request for proposals seeking architectural and engineering services for the construction of a public safety building. The city will conduct architectural and engineering assessments to evaluate the viability and cost of potential sites for public safety buildings. The size, architectural style, and specific amenities will be determined through community discussions and consensus over the next year. If the community prioritizes and agrees to fund the project, the city may pursue a bond measure, potentially at an election no earlier than November 2025. The Klosh Group has handled the development and administration of the RFPs. 10 potential applicants attending the fire police station walkthrough with some appointed selection committee members. 8 proposals received before the closing date of August 6th. Selection committee went through, as we heard from Robert, an extensive application rating process, narrowing down to 3. We did the interviews, and the selection committee was recommending that FFA Architecture and Interiors, who is in attendance tonight to answer council questions. City staff is also requesting funds up to $145,000 to fund the awarded bidder's first place of the project, which would include a $25,000 contingency to allow the city to be nimble for additional public meetings or the possibility of another site. You have your motions there, your options, and we also have Jesse that is on site that has an update for the counselors as well. Jesse, if you're still there, let me get Garrett off there.
We're doing the kind of the schedule update on the project now.
I think this would be the best place so people understand what the next steps are.
Okay.
And I can get that up on the screen for you.
Great, thanks.
And for those that don't know her, that was Jessica Steiner with Klosh Group.
All right, so we're gonna kind of skip ahead here. It's a real short presentation. Don't worry about it. It's late. We just covered the RFP process. Robert did great. Thank you so much for doing that. So we're gonna keep going forward, Chad, to really the schedule slide. There you go. So I know this is hard to see on the screen that's in the room. You should have it printed out. This project schedule is really a collaboration between our building committee group, and then kind of after discussions with that, I put together a full project schedule that would show us how we could get to a bond measure, targeting next November for that, for the vote. And then once we had selected FFA, they kind of took a pass through the schedule too, and made a few little tweaks there that would work a little bit better with their design process. So this is a collaborative schedule at this point. So really what we're showing is they're targeting the first community meeting sometime in November. And that's really kind of like, this is where we want to get in and listen and understand the project, start to probably develop some success criteria for it. And then we're showing the second community meeting. We're showing it kind of like before the holidays, before Christmas. That's the one where it might have to get pushed to January. I think there's a little flexibility in that one. And then we've got a third community meeting, which would be targeting in February. And this is kind of where some of the change happened is the next community meeting would be several months later, probably in May. And you can see from the schedule, this part that FFA put together, that they really just needed a bit more time to do some design work and also to get a cost estimate. Those things take some effort. It's usually an iterative process. And so we just needed a bit more time in between kind of the third community meeting and the fourth to like properly get a cost estimate in there. The other modification we made from kind of a previous schedule, this is really, I had presented a schedule at the August town hall. It was in a different format, but by and large, like the dates and the topics haven't really changed all that much. So what we did though is we moved one of the council work sessions. We had them like kind of get, previously it was like, let's get through all these community meetings, then we'll do a couple work sessions, then we'll do the council meetings. But FFA had a great idea. They were like, in our experience, we feel like we really want to loop in council kind of before we get to the end of this. So we showed like a midway check-in council work session. So that we could make sure we're all on the right track and then get some input or feedback at that time. So we're targeting about February for that. And that allows us a little bit more design time to incorporate some of your comments, get the cost estimate, and then we'll be back for another work session after that. So that's kind of, and then once we get through all the work sessions, the community brings forward, hey, this is the option that the community is recommending. Then we have a work session and then a couple of full council meetings so we can engage in some public debate and comment about it. And that still gives us some time to kind of decide on the bond measure or other financing strategies for an August filing deadline, if that's the route the project decides to take. And then I know several council members had asked like about when you're going to really be participating in this project. And so I kind of added to the top that one of the great ways to do it is I think we'd like to make sure you're properly invited to all the community meetings. I think your attendance there would be fantastic. I kind of added at the top that was more about listening and learning. I think, really allowing the community to drive this process seems like a winning strategy. But if you guys are able to attend and listen and learn and hear all the comments, I think that will be a great learning experience over the next couple months. And then somewhere in the midwinter, let's say February, that's where we're really going to be getting a lot more of your input and feedback. So kind of thinking about it in two different kind of phases for council involvement is where we are landing right now.
All right, thank you, Jesse.
You're welcome. Oh, I forgot, I had one more slide, I'm sorry. The other thing we talked about, I talked about with Chad is, another way I've seen like councils or boards really give the teams some direction is, you know, you could have an internal work session to basically develop, maybe a short list, like 5 guiding principles for the design team and the project building committee team to follow. You can kind of develop some success criteria. So we're talking some like high level project goals so that as the building team starts to make some, you know, guided little either not really decisions, but we choose a path to go down that we could take into account the guiding principles that you've set for us so that we're always keeping that in our minds and it's factored into how we choose different directions to take in the design. And then, yeah, then like, you know, then I described the other things. And then we've got an opportunity to engage with the public at future council meetings. And then the city website blog will be updated and we will continue to share like meeting minutes from our building committees and things like that. That is all I had prepared for our presentation, but we're happy to answer questions. I do want to introduce FFA. They're in the room. You could give them a little wave maybe. They're happy to answer some questions if you like.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Just one question for you, Jesse, before we go, just to make sure that we're clear on what you're saying. In plain English, you're saying you want the council to, in this beginning portion, this is going to be community driven, but you want us to create some kind of parameters and then measurements or some kind of a mission statement, and then some kind of way to measure our progress towards that goal, right? So that they're not just all, you know, the community is where we have a controlled process and not just everybody asking, what are we doing here?
Yeah, I think that's, yeah, by and large about what we're getting at. I think how it helps the teams is if the council has you have your own internal work session, that council is kind of agreeing on a set of guiding principles for the team to consider. And so that's the thing that helps give us direction, and that council has some alignment so we feel comfortable we're proceeding down the right path. So if that's, you don't have to do that step, but I believe it's really helpful so that we're not missing the mark for your vision for this building.
Well, the funny thing is we're talking about having a work session for trees, so we might.
So we can combine, we can build. And that'll be sooner than later.
Correct.
Okay.
Like real soon.
Like real soon.
Yeah.
Got it.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for FFA and integrators?
No, I was just, I was delighted to see your background. I was glad to hear what Robert had to say about you. And I hope that the public pays attention to your experiences, not only on the coast, but I know that money is a big concern and size is a big concern. I'm glad to see that you're working with some smaller cities and also some volunteer organizations similar to ours and police departments. Thank you.
You got anything, Preston? Rita?
Looks good.
You good? Well, good gracious. I don't have any questions, but I'll take a motion.
I move to award the architectural and engineering project to FFA Architect and Interior and approve funds requested up to $145,000 cover phase 1 architectural costs.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Gentlemen, thanks a lot for all the questions.
Get started.
Thank you.
Great.
I appreciate it. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
You're welcome. It's been a long wait.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're trying that. Well, all right, we're moving on to new business, request for funds, public safety, building, geotech studies. Jab?
The police and fire station replacement and potential relocation project remain a top priority for the city's council goals blueprint. With the park location removed from consideration, the city is exploring other options. These include the possibility of expanding the current site due to a potential land acquisition of power, as well as locating across the highway with a comparable site for proposed land acquisition from the right of ways. In my earlier update, you know that is no longer true. Pending council approval of an architect, the next step will be to begin due diligence so conceptual designs can be developed. Staff is requesting up to $40,000 for a building reserve from the building reserve fund to conduct geotech studies as both the current site and another site if one comes available, or instruct us to head in that direction. These studies are essential because fire station and police station will be critical infrastructure buildings located in a tsunami and earthquake zone, making it vital to assess the site's geological stability and risks. A geotech study includes services such as preliminary review of geologic information, subsurface explorations, laboratory testing, engineering analysis, and the preparation of geotechnical report. These results will provide crucial information for the architect to develop the most cost-effective design while ensuring the building meets the structural requirements necessary to withstand seismic and tsunami hazards and to serve fire and police departments. So you have your options there: allocate up to $40,000 of public safety building geotech studies, allocate a different amount, or take other actions. Financial analysis: the building reserve fund currently has $268,236. But we'll have $123,236 remaining after the phase one architect award is approved. If both the architect and the geotech contracts are awarded, the reserve fund would have $83,236 remaining.
Okay, one thing we need to get away from is calling this a fire station because it is a public safety building. We want to get that settled. It's none of this, just a fire station.
Yeah, no, sorry. My point was more about the critical infrastructure side of things and calling out the fire and police station.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'll take a motion.
I have a question about that.
Okay.
If the Ordway property is no longer on the table, do we need to take option 3 as far as council options and take other actions necessary desired by council and just say, we're gonna authorize up to $40,000 from the building reserve fund to conduct geological testing studies at the current site and at another site to be determined?
That could be just from the recommendation.
Yeah, that could be just an amendment that we strike Ordway and replace it with second site.
Okay.
Well, if you go to recommendation, staff recommends council motion to approve the request for up to $40,000 to conduct geotech studies at 2 potential public safety building sites.
Okay.
Yeah, we do have one other issue that goes along with that is that we have a geotech that is ready to go if they are selected or if we're able to get funding. And it's relatively soon in order to meet our timeline. We have the possibility of starting this work, I think on the 11th of this month, Jesse?
The 10th.
Of this month. So with only one site so far that we have for sure and no direction on the other at this point, what we would be doing is bringing in a geotech firm. And if we had to bring them in again for another site, this may be more expensive than the $40,000. Because I think their intention was to come in and have a drilling rig come in once to do 2 jobs rather than twice to do 2 jobs. So staff would then say, is there, any other site that we want to consider at this moment? Or are we prepared that this might be more expensive if we just do one geotech site study now and later?
Because it wasn't noticed on our agenda, we would have to have a special council meeting to consider the school site and discuss it.
And we would also need to negotiate a temporary access easement so the work could be done. And I know that Carrie's pretty busy, but we could probably get that.
Probably.
Yeah. So, I don't know if it makes sense to push it out a week so that you guys have an opportunity to have publicly notice this and have a conversation, or whether, or I guess on Monday, I don't know if Monday would work for a special council. We just need enough advance notice in order to notice this thing.
Okay.
But then,
Yeah, so Jesse,
Mhm.
you're most familiar with the geotech situation and what their availability was. If it looks like we may have to push this back a little bit, what would that mean to your timeline?
I was just about to email him actually, and I just, maybe we could push it out like 2 weeks. Which buys us a little bit of time to figure this out. And I don't think 2 weeks would probably make or break us. I think what we'd like to avoid is like a 2-month delay. That's too long. So let me see about 2 weeks or so. I don't think that's gonna be a big deal. And that, I think we're gonna need that time to get our ducks in a row a little bit.
Okay.
all right,
Then we can schedule a meeting here as soon as possible, and we've got a little bit of time for that. Yeah.
we'll find out when everybody's available for another city council meeting. And a work session. Okay,
We could do it on one night, that'd be awesome.
yeah, start in the afternoon and go.
Or, you know,
Here to
the
breakfast,
day
also
before the
like-
planning commission meeting, so I don't have to go.
What day is that?
Thursday, so it'd be Wednesday of next week.
Yeah.
I can just.
Okay,
So are we setting this aside for now, or are we gonna?
So I think that you should go forward, in my opinion, you would go forward with the amount for the $40,000, and then maybe with a site to get determined.
Yeah.
Second site to be determined.
And then we can have the meeting in order to determine what that second site is.
can we just read the recommendation as the
So.
Yeah.
motion?
Allocate, okay, I make a motion, we allocate up to $40,000 for public safety building geotech studies.
I second. Okay. Is there any discussion? No discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you, council.
All right, now. Here comes the fun. The pick'em from FEMA. Chad?
I can do this one.
Okay, Peter?
So, obviously, we were hoping to have, data from FEMA, well, in August, but in advance of this meeting, we don't. So we don't know, we have an idea of what the maps might look like. We don't have it. I am worried that if we do a moratorium, that won't be in compliance with our state land use goal 10, just a straight up moratorium. My suggestion, and what Garrett and I have discussed with Chad and Angelina, is that hybrid fourth. At least we start out with that. That would show that we're trying to comply on the timeline as required. And then when we actually get the maps, we can take a hard look. And if we need to revisit this and go with a different option, we can do it at that time. But in the interim, the hybrid, which we'd be adopting their maps and then giving property owners the ability to come in with that kind of natural survey, which is the far more flexible, but will be more expensive and time consuming. So to the extent that the map has errors or something like that, it would give an owner flexibility to come in. Once we actually get the maps and the other stuff, then I think it makes sense to revisit this. But again, I'd like to demonstrate the certainty of the map, assuming we get it, and then the flexibility in case it's wrong. And then you guys probably noticed in your packet a letter from Governor Kotek to FEMA, just kind of saying, what are you doing? And how do you expect us to meet your timelines? And I certainly appreciate that, because I think the exact same thing. But hybrid 4, I think, would give us hopefully the best of both worlds, and we can always revisit it once we have the data we need. So that's kind of my recommendation.
So by revisit it, does that mean that we can completely change our mind on?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the options are moratorium, which I'm really worried about the legality of us doing that, given her emergency declaration. The FEMA's maps, which probably going to work for most of it, but might not work for all property owners because it has more certainty, but less flexibility to look at habitat. And then that third option, which isn't clear and objective, and all of our requirements for land use in Oregon are clear and objective. So the hybrid gives us the clear and objective standards that we're required by state law to have. And also the flexibility of a property owner or the city saying, hey, this map just doesn't look like the reality. So we want to go through this separate process and yeah.
Okay. I make a motion that we direct the planning commission to pursue the hybrid model ordinance and habitat assessment option that we have as number 4.
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, moving on. Council concerns. Do you have any concern, Preston?
Carrie.
No, I'm not,
I have no concern.
but thank you for. Do you have any concern?
I have one concern, in a, public letter, it was a phrase stated that I demanded something of a citizen. And I would just like to publicly put on record that I have never demanded anything from any citizen. That is not true. So.
Okay, Dana,
No concerns at this time.
I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
All those in favor say aye.
I'll second and say aye.
Second and say aye. Thanks a lot. All right.
No. This is what Chad's trying to do.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for coming, Garrett.
Thank you, Garrett.
And I hope all is well. My heart goes out to you. Heart prayers to your community.
I visited Ashton.